Hi everyone, I will be giving a presentation about how early childhood education and care settings might apply three of the Victorian child safety standards. One of the most important duties in education is to ensure the safety of children and how children and young people should be shielded from harm and encouraged in their well-being and given the ability to voice their opinions on the issues that might impact them according to the Victorian child safety standards. These principles constitute a moral and ethical need for educators to establish learning settings where each kid feels safe, respected, and valued, just not treat them as a compliance obligation. For this presentation, I have chosen to focus on three standards that represent different dimensions of child safety. Number one is creating culturally safe environments for Aboriginal children and their families. Number two, we are talking about empowering children and young people with a focus on child voice and participation. Number three is the strong governments and leadership to enable a culturally safe environment. Victorian child safe standards. Using important policy documents such as Victorian Child Safety Standards, a guide for early childhood services, the Commission for Children and Young People, creating a child safe organization, uh, the ethics and the national quality framework. I will critically examine each standard in order to assess how these requirements might be implemented in practice, what obstacles might appear and how I can address. I will also consult recent academic studies while going through this presentation. So the standard one talks about creating culturally safe environments. So creating culturally safe environments for Aboriginal children and families is the first criteria that I'll be talking about. The significance of acknowledging and honoring the distinct histories, experiences, and the rights of Aboriginal people is emphasized in this standard. This means that the program in early childhood education must make sure Aboriginal children feel valued, connected, and free to express who they are without worrying about prejudice. Tokenistic inclusion alone is insufficient for cultural safety, according to the Victorian Child Safety Standards, a guide for early childhood services. It includes creating an atmosphere where kids may celebrate their culture, integrating Aboriginal viewpoints into regular education, and conducting sincere consultation with Aboriginal communities. We can include Aboriginal viewpoints in the curriculum, such as through the participation of Aboriginal children through storytelling, art, and acknowledging the land in everyday activities. This is one practical way that we can conduct and have a clear approach. We can help in establishing solid alliances with local elders and Aboriginal families to make sure their opinions are heard when making decisions. Professional development for teachers with an emphasis on fostering cultural competence and anti-bias strategies can also be used. There are substantial obstacles um, in conducting these three strategies. Many educators say they are unsure of how to properly incorporate Aboriginal ideas. Systemic biases, a lack of training, and the fear of getting it wrong can lead to a practice that is consistent of superficial, according to Tory, Fox, and Colony. The continuity of leadership with Aboriginal communities may be disrupted by worker turnover, So building long-term community partnership becomes really important. There are many barriers when it comes to cultural safety. Leadership in early childhood programs must make investments in continuous professional development and establish sincere long-term alliances with Aboriginal organizations in order to overcome these obstacles. Teachers are also reminded by the Early Childhood Australia Code of Ethics that they must uphold social justice, fairness, and respect for diversity in all of their profession decisions, according to the ECA version of 2016. Trauma-informed practice is also associated with cultural safety. Intergenerational trauma brought on by colonization, dispossession, and structural deprivation may be carried by Aboriginal families. Accordingly, fostering a culturally safe atmosphere promotes recovery, resilience, and overall wellness. This is a research by the Early Childhood Resource Hub 2019. In conclusion, putting this standard into practice calls for a whole of service strategy based on partnership, respect, and authenticity. It's about transforming cultural safety from a written guideline into something that kids experience on a daily basis. Standard 2 talks about empowering child voice. So, children's empowerment and making sure their voices are heard are the main goals of the second standard. This criteria fundamentally upholds children's right to participate in decisions that impact their life, as stated in the UN Convention on the Rights of Children. Children must be viewed as competent and engaged contributors to their own safety and well-being in an early childhood setting. Children who are empowered are more likely to voice concern, disclose harm, and help create a safer environment, according to the Commission for Children and Young People's Creating a Child Safe Organization resource. Empowering child voice in practice. The practical applications include embedding choice and agency in everyday routines, such as allowing children to contribute to room rules, activity planning, and daily transitions. Developing child-friendly safety policies, including visual posters or storybooks that explain safe and unsafe behavior in age-appropriate ways. Creating multiple avenues for expression, recognizing that very young children may communicate through play, gestures, or artwork rather than words. Multiple avenues for expression are not limited to, but can be expanded to stronger learning results and a great sense of belonging that are fostered by empowerment and involvement, according to research. According to Epley and Soto Manning 2023, true inclusion needs to go beyond cursory consultation. In order to ensure that children's views are not only heard but also taken into considerations, educators must instead critically analyze the power dynamics in early childhood settings. Time constraints, adult-centric procedures, and the belief that young children are too young to engage in decision making are some of the difficulties in this area. Furthermore, some teachers can be uncertain about how to record the voices of babies or non-verbal kids. So the barriers and the solutions to child voice, these obstacles can be overcome by implementing new approaches. Educators, for example, can employ observational recording to evaluate nonverbal signals of preference, as well as circle times in which children share ideas in supportive setting. Professional learning communities can also help educators think about how to reconcile children's agency and adult duties for safety. The National Quality Framework The quality area 2 reminds educators that children's health and safety are best promoted when they feel valued and safe. Embedding kid voice directly benefits children's well-being and resilience, maintaining the relationship between involvement and safety. In short, this norm reminds us that children are not passive beneficiaries of care, rather they co-create their own learning and safety. Now we are talking about the standard 3, which is governance and leadership and capacity building. The third standard I choose focuses on governance and leadership in developing child-safe organizations. A child safety culture cannot exist without strong leadership and clear accountability to all levels of the company. The Victorian Child Safe Standards emphasize that governing bodies, leaders, and educators share responsibility for ensuring safety in all phases of service delivery. This includes developing policies, maintaining compliance, and demonstrating ethical behavior, according to the Department of Education, Victoria. Governance in practice includes many strategies. So the practical strategies might include developing clear child safety policies and reporting procedures, ensuring all safe staff understand their responsibilities, regular staff training and induction so that every educator can identify and respond to risk of harm. Number 3 could be embedding safety into everyday leadership practices, such as supervision, mentoring, and staff appraisals. Encouraging transparent communication with families about child safety measures can also be included in the governance and practice. Barriers and solutions to governance. One issue in this area is compliance fatigue. Educators sometimes confront various regulatory mandates which can make policies feel more like a paperwork rather than actual practice. Limited resources and excessive personal turnover furthermore impede consistent implementation. To address these difficulties, educators must model child safety practice in daily decision making, making policies meaningful and integrated into service culture, collaborative techniques where staff participate in reviewing and designing safety measures, promote ownership and consistency. So the personal reflection section, I would say that deeply interacting with the Victorian child safety standards has transformed my personal development. I have learned from this process that child safety is more than just physical protection. It also involves cultural inclusiveness, emotional health, and enabling kids to take an active role in their own lives. Building genuine relationships with Aboriginal children, families, and communities is crucial, and the emphasis on cultural safety has forced me to examine my own prejudices. I now understand that cultural safety should not be viewed as a one-time event or topic, but rather as an integral part of everyday life. Understanding the child safety standards has made me realize how crucial it is to view kids as competent, entitled people. Every child I work with should feel heard, respected, and empowered to express themselves in ways that are relevant to them. This is my goal as an educator. Lastly, my responsibilities as a practitioner and potential leader in the field have been strengthened by my education in governance and leadership. With the help of strong moral leadership and teamwork, I hope to contribute to services where child safety is a lived culture. My resolve to maintain child safety as a core component of my professional identity has been reinforced by this assessment. In conclusion, to sum up, the Victorian child safety standards offer an essential foundation for safeguarding and empowering young learners. We may observe how many aspects of safety combine to provide settings where children can flourish, by concentrating on cultural safety, child voice, and governance. These standards prevent educators with duty and opportunity. So to help present the educators with a duty and opportunity, a duty to protect students' safety and well-being, and a chance to set an example of moral leadership, tolerance, and true inclusion. In the end, applying the child safety standards is about upholding our duty of care to each and every kid, not merely about complying with the regulations. Thank you very much.